I saw a Mercedes blocking my side of the garage, but I didn't think much of it. I just popped home to get my phone. It's amazing how dependent people have come on their phones nowadays. It had notes I made for the 10 o'clock meeting, and I wanted to make sure I was ready. Under normal circumstances, I would never have been home at 9:15. On the other hand, my wife is a stay-at-home mom with a child. I texted her to see if she was busy, and she replied that she was in the library. She couldn't deliver the phone to me, so I made the 15-minute drive home. I was wondering whose Benz it was when I walked through the front door. Since Sienna was in the library, there shouldn't have been any guests. I guess I'm a fool, because when I went to my bedroom to get my cell phone, I saw that my wife was on the bed with another man in the guest bedroom. I froze for a while, but calmed down and quietly pulled out my phone, intending to take a picture for the divorce, but changed my mind because rage overwhelmed me. I grabbed the guy by the hair and pulled him away from my unfaithful wife. He was shouting obscenities when I knocked him to the floor. After giving him one kick and another, I spat on my wife and left the room. I was deaf to her screams asking me to stop. She begged me to wait, but I didn't hear anything. The Mercedes was flashing in my driveway when I opened the trunk. I quickly looked to see if I had anything suitable and chose a heavy metal jack. That's enough, I said to myself, and began to break all the windows, headlights, taillights, and all the doors of the offender's car. I calmly returned to my truck, threw the tool into it, and wiped the sweat from my forehead. By this point, my neighbor Heather came out to see what was going on. I waved my hand as I drove away from my entrance, not listening to my wife yelling at me to stop and let her explain everything. We were married for 2 years, but we dated throughout college. Our son, Sebastian Jr., was 13 months old, and it suddenly dawned on me that I would be paying alimony forever. I couldn't believe my world was collapsing, and then the phone rang. I drove into the parking lot of my office and put my thoughts in order for the meeting. I met with the owners and my immediate supervisor about the idea of remote work of employees. This would allow the company to save hundreds of thousands on rent every year, but they were against it because they were old and not very far-sighted. I was going to change their minds. I ignored calls from my wife and, surprisingly, her sister and sent notes to myself by email. I left my phone on the seat and went to make my presentation. I sat down in my corner in the office and breathed a sigh of relief. My neighbor Beth looked in on me and asked, "How did it go?" I smiled. "A meeting. Great. I think we'll be on the remote by Christmas. And my life. In the sewer." "What happened?" I went home and saw that my wife was sleeping with some asshole. My marriage is over." It seemed to me that a smile flickered on her lips. "God, I'm sorry, Buzz." "Yes, me too." The landline phone rang, and I saw that it was my wife. I thought she was going to keep bothering me, and I answered. "Please don't bother me at work, Sienna." "Boz, please, baby. You made a mistake." "Yes, I made a mistake when I married you." Beth laughed and made a gesture, firing the gun at the phone. I frowned. "No. For God's sake, listen to me. It wasn't me at home. I was in the library. It was Scarlett." I laughed. "Why would Scarlett use our house?" "Steve works from home." Steve had been her husband for 6 months. Could this be true? Could it have been Scarlett and not Sienna? I put my chin on my chest and said, "Prove it." "What?" she screamed. "Prove it. Prove it was Scarlett." I replayed the whole scene in my head. I tried to imagine every image, every nuance that I could remember. Nothing helped. "How can I do that, baby? You are welcome. You have to believe me. I love you, Buzz. Don't give up on us. Abandon us. You did it when you spread your legs. I slapped the phone on stand. "Are you okay?" Beth asked. "No. She says it was her sister." Beth laughed. "You've seen them, haven't you?" I nodded. "Then what's the problem?" I looked at her and said, "They're twins." The rest of the day, I was like a zombie. I wasn't sure if I should go home, look for a hotel, or what to do at all. But I was expecting an ambush on my return home. Sienna and her sister were so close to their mother that I figured all three of them would be there to pounce on me. I pulled into my garage at the usual time and saw that Scarlett and Verity were already there. Verity was my mother-in-law and could be a triplet with her daughters. Except for the extra 20 years, reflected by the traces experience on her face, she was an exact copy of them. I approached my ambush, and when they all started talking at the same time, I raised my hand to stop them. "Shut up, all of you." I went to the playpen of little Boz and picked him up. "How are you, baby?" I asked, as if he could answer me. I tickled him, and his giggling couldn't help but amuse me. I was worried about losing him after the divorce, and Sienna would find someone to replace me with. He was so young. Would he ever think of me as his dad? Or would he look at my replacement as his dad? It broke my heart. A tear rolled down my cheek as I sat on the couch. Little Boz wriggled out and slid down my legs to quickly crawl away. All three women looked at me expectantly, and each of them looked like an asp ready to strike. "Okay," I said, "where's Steve?" "Why does Steve have to be here?" Scarlett asked. I knew it was Scarlett because she had a mole on the back of her hand. No, I didn't notice her hand this morning. That would be too easy. I was an ass to leave without letting her explain how she begged. There wouldn't be any problem if I just stayed. "Well, if it was you who slept with this man in my guest room, doesn't he deserve the right to know?" "I won't tell Steve." "I was hoping you'd keep this between us," she whimpered. I laughed. "You expect me to believe it was you and not Sienna, but not tell Steve. I don't believe you." Verity intervened. "Boz, let's not ruin marriages over this." "Oh, you're being a little brazen, Verity. I'll tell you what happens. My marriage is ruined, and the only thing that can bring it back is Scarlett's confession to Steve of her infidelity." The women gasped, and Sienna began to sob. "Steve is too much," Verity said, defending her daughters. "Wait a minute," I said. "I need change. I'll be back soon." When I got to my bedroom, I called my father-in-law, Dale. "Hi, Buzz. What happened?" "Dale, you need to come to my house right away. I have a lot of problems here, and I need your help." "What's going on? Everything is fine." "Just come here as soon as possible." I ended the conversation and decided to stall a bit. I took a quick shower and dressed in comfortable shorts and a tank top. It's been about 10 minutes, so Dale should be here soon. I went downstairs, looked at the three women who were whispering conspiratorially, and took a couple of bottles of beer from the refrigerator. Just in time, Dale walked in the door without knocking, as usual for him. I poured him a beer, and the lady started on me again. Sienna started. "Why did you call my father? He shouldn't be involved in this." "Nonsense," I snapped. "I need backup. You're lucky I got to voicemail in Steve's case." Scarlett opened her mouth. "I never called Steve. I never liked this guy, and I didn't want to see him." "What's going on, Buzz?" Dale asked. "Well, today I found my wife sleeping with some man in my bed, and they are trying to convince me that it was Scarlett, not her." He screamed. "What?" I nodded and continued while he looked at the women. "The problem is that Scarlett refuses to tell Steve. She can save my marriage by destroying hers, but she doesn't want to. This tells me that it wasn't her, but Sienna." "I agree," he said. He looked at me and asked, "And What is my wife's opinion? I frowned. Verity seems inclined not to tell Steve and just move on. She seems to think that her daughter should be allowed to have their affairs without any consequences. Verity said, "I'm just trying to save their marriages. I don't support novels." Dale said, "If I even think that you knew about it or see that you support it in any way, I will throw you out on the street. Buzz, bring Steve here. He should know that his wife is unfaithful to him, and he can decide for himself whether to stay married to her." A pleading look appeared on Sienna's face, turned to her sister. Scarlett looked at me and stood up. She shook her head and said, "I'm really sorry. I refused to tell my husband that it was me. I'll take my chances." "You!" Sienna shouted. "Are you going to ruin my marriage for a chance to save yours? Get out of my house! And you better understand that I'm going to tell Steve everything." Scarlett laughed. "Do you think he'll believe you? You will do anything to try to save your marriage, even lie to ruin mine." Verity stood up and said, "Girls, stop. The only thing that will save your marriages is the truth." Scarlett grinned and walked out the door. "I didn't expect such a performance," I said. Dale looked at me questioningly. "She plays it out. She said versus she said. If they both blame each other, no one will know for sure who it was. She decided that both Steve and I would think that our wife could have done it, but without accurate evidence. There is a chance that we will not divorce." "Gee," Dale said. "Yeah, but look at it this way, Dale. It happened in my house. This means that either it was my wife or my wife knew about it and supported the unfaithful sister, even encouraged her by allowing her to use my house. If Sienna doesn't see a problem with her sister betraying her husband, how can I believe that she doesn't betray herself? After all, they are twins." "No," Sienna screamed and ran into our bedroom. I knew their identity didn't mean they would both be traitors, but I thought it was a good way to hurt her. Verity turned to go to Sienna, but Dale stopped her. "If you support any of them in this, I will assume that you support them, and you will end up on the street. Understand?" She nodded meekly and hugged Dale. I lifted Baz out of his chair and kissed him, hoping that everything would somehow work out. I fed Baz dinner and put him in the playpen while I was trying to figure out what to do. Sienna didn't come down, and I figured she was doing the same thing as me. I sat with my eyes closed, going over and over in my memory the pictures of the bedroom at that moment, and could not remember anything that could prove that it was Scarlett and not Sienna. I was interrupted from my thoughts by the ringing of my mobile phone. "Hi, Beth." "How are you, Buzz?" "Nothing. There is no forward or backward movement. I'm desperately trying to figure out how I can find out for sure which one it was. But I'm stuck in uncertainty." "I'm so sorry, Buzz. You don't deserve this. If you need anything, I'll be right there, okay?" "All right, Beth. Thank you. See you in the morning." I ended the conversation and thought how good it was that Beth checked on me. We've been friends since we started working on the same day 2 years ago. Her workplace was next to mine, and since the office was open, our computers were facing each other and we looked at each other almost all day. She was a pretty girl, a little bigger than Sienna, but she had some thoughts, and she often made hints and used ambiguous expressions during the day. If Sienna was tall and slender, Beth was short and curvy with long red hair that she constantly pushed back throughout the day. "Buzz," Sienna said from the stairs. "Yes?" "I swear on our son's life, it was Scarlett. You have to believe me. Believe in my love for you." "How? How can I believe you? If it wasn't you, why did you let your sister do this in our house? You really screwed up, Sienna. I don't see a way out of this situation for us." She was sitting on the stairs and sobbing. I knew I had to do one thing for sure, so I called Steve. "Hi, Buzz." "Hi, Steve. Did Scarlett tell you about today's drama?" "No. She went to a friend. I haven't seen her since breakfast." "Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I caught one of our wives in bed with some man on the bed in my guest room this morning. Initially, they said it was Scarlett, but when I said I'd tell you, Scarlett backed out of it. They left everything on each other's conscience, trying to save themselves." "You've got to be kidding," he shouted. "No, I do not know who it was or who to believe. It's a complete mess here." "Dude, was Scarlett's car there?" I sighed. "I don't know for sure. I didn't open the garage. I only saw Mercedes. And no, I've never seen him before." "Thanks for telling me, Baz. I'll find her and see what she tells me. I'll let you know." "Thanks." Sienna was still crying on the stairs. "You shouldn't have told him. You just don't understand. You can't play games like this while you're married and not suffer the consequences. If it was her, she must suffer. I don't understand how you could think you could say it was her. And I would never tell Steve. This would never have happened. We know you don't like Steve. Another reason I think you're playing with me. I can't believe you did this to us. We have a baby." Little Baz started crying because of my scream, and Sienna went to calm him down. It made me want to cry, but I refused to shed tears in front of her. She was such a wonderful mom. When we first started dating, she admitted that she didn't care if she would ever work. She wanted to be a mom and have 3 children. It wasn't in her nature. She was devoted to me and little Baz and never showed a single hint that she was unhappy. I think it was the same with Scarlett, although she was more sociable than Sienna. If you had asked me, I would also never have believed that she could do this to Steve. The next morning, I called my father. "How are you, Sebastian? How is my grandson?" "Okay, Dad. Listen, I need your help." "Is everything all right?" "No, I need to hire a private investigator." I explained what happened. My parents had money, and they could afford to help me pay for the services of a private detective. Besides, Sienna handled our accounts. I didn't want her to see a payment. My father did better and had a private investigator check on Scarlett as well. In his opinion, it was worth it to try to save my marriage. "Sebastian," he said, "no matter what we find out or don't find out, your son should be in the first place in every decision you make. You know that, right?" I sighed. "Yes, he's the only thing stopping me from divorcing her right now." "All right, son, you may have to swallow a little pride and self-esteem. I know it's a difficult choice, but it's part of what a man does. No matter what anyone tells you, the child is the most important thing." "I know, Dad." I ended the conversation feeling worse than at the beginning. I sat down at my desk and saw that Beth had already connected to our morning call. I noticed that she put on makeup and chose clothes with a beautiful neckline. I was wondering who the lucky guy she was trying for was. I figured she had a date after work. I joined the conversation and saw that a message from Steve appeared on my phone. "She said she wasn't in your house. I'm not sure I believe her, and I'll be angry that she lied if she didn't. Good luck." Yes, good luck. He was in the same boat as me. What do we believe? Beth sent me an instant message with a question. "Is everything all right?" I looked at her and shook my head. "No." She frowned and we went back to our call. As soon as it was over, she asked, "Are you going to lunch today? I'm buying to cheer you up." "I'm not the best company, Beth. Thanks for the offer, though." "Oh, no. I won't let you wallow in misery. You don't deserve this." I didn't think I deserved such a wife, but here I am. She shook her head and growled, "Any woman who betrays you is stupid and does not deserve you." "Thanks, Beth." The detective asked me to fill out some forms, a couple of questionnaires, and also send him some photos. I spent my lunch break on it, so I managed to avoid lunch with Beth. I told Steve about the private investigator, and he was thrilled. He filled out the parts of Scarlett's questionnaire that I didn't have answers to, her daily routine and the like, and I returned everything to the investigator so that he would immediately start working. I was hoping he could tell me quickly if it was Scarlett and not Sienna. I knew I'd go crazy every day if I didn't find out. He said it might take a couple of weeks to find out anything. I was curious why I hadn't heard anything about trashing the guy's car. I expected to get a call from at least the insurance company, and in the worst case, from the police. I came home and saw that Sienna had gone to class in the pool with a small base. So I wrote to the detective that everything was ready for the installation of cameras. He came in and out in less than half an hour, and I made myself dinner. When Sienna got home, I asked her, "Who was that guy?" "What guy?" "The guy you were with. Don't play dumb." "I told you it wasn't me. I have no idea who Scarlett was dating." I called Scarlett and put her on speakerphone. "Hi, Buzz." "Who was that guy?" "The guy you found in your guest room? I have no idea." "One of you is lying, and I'm going to find out who he is." I was hoping that one of them would let it slip and give me some information, no matter how insignificant. It didn't matter. A private detective knew about the damage to the car and checked the body shops in the city. I'll find out soon enough. A week passed. There was no news from the private detective. Nothing changed in my condition, and Sienna did everything possible to show that she loved me. Beth was obsessive and invited me to lunch every day. I realized what she was doing and put an end to it. She had to wait until I got divorced to claim me. One morning, I stopped by Starbucks and was very surprised. I was standing in a queue of cars around the coffee shop, and someone walked in front of my car to enter the store. It was that guy. I'll never forget that face. I pulled out of the queue and parked. I stood behind my car and waited. After a few minutes, he came out and didn't notice me until he was 10 feet away. "Hi," I said. "Do you remember me?" "Listen, man, I don't want any problems. She didn't tell me she was married." I went up to him and said, "Answer one question and I'll let you go unharmed. You'll never see me again." "All right, kid. Ask." "Who did you sleep with?" "What? What are you talking about?" he asked. "You saw us." "Who was she?" I shouted. "What was her name?" "I do not know her name. We met on the internet at a forum. I called her the Siren." I shouted, "Ah," and he started as if I was going to hit him. I took a deep breath and asked, "What's her phone number?" I don't have a phone number. We corresponded via private messages on the site." It was getting harder and harder for me not to hit him out of frustration. "What kind of website is this?" I asked. "It's a community. She posts photos there. Some are naked and some are in their underwear." "Did you correspond after that?" "Just once. She promised to pay for the repair of my car, and I told her that I didn't want to hear about her anymore. I don't want any trouble, man. You better not go near her or I'll meet you again. Understand?" "Yes, please. I swear I didn't know she was married." He left, and I knew he was telling the truth. The most interesting thing about that conversation was that he said she posted the photos. I may not have a name, but I have photos. I hope at least one of them showed her hands. I went to the forum page and called work. Said I was sick, so I wouldn't be caught looking at naked women all morning. It wasn't hard to figure out, and soon I had my own username and joined the community. I've been looking through photos of attractive and not so attractive women who have mostly cropped their faces. I found the post of Sirens, and it was an ordinary picture in underwear. I couldn't see her hands, but I didn't recognize the outfit, and for the first time in a week, I felt better. I clicked on the username and went to the Sirens page. There were dozens of photos, and I didn't recognize the room. They were not made in any of our homes. She must have been holding the camera with her mole hand because she wasn't in any of the pictures. After reviewing dozens more pictures, I began to get upset. I tried to identify the room, the clothes, any traces on her body. Even her lips looked like Sienna's. I was at a loss. The photos were 6 months old at most, so the chronology didn't help either. Sienna had already lost weight after pregnancy by that time, and she didn't have any stretch marks or a scar. Another dead end, and it was driving me crazy. I was so close to finding out which sister she was, and then I had an epiphany. I entered the house. Sienna was feeding my son. She asked, "Is everything all right, Buzz? Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine. Could you make me some soup?" "Sure, kid. Sit down. It will be ready in a minute." I saw her phone on the table and sent a private message to the user Siren. I put the phone down and waited. It was excruciating. Sienna looked at me and asked, "Buzz, I don't want to put pressure on you, but are you close to a decision? I'm dying a little bit every day without your love." I was about to tell her that I still love her when my phone buzzed. I opened it and saw a message from the Siren. I broke down. I was crying like a baby, and Sienna hurried to me and hugged me. "What's the matter, Buzz? What's the matter?" "I love you so much, Sienna. I would have died if it was you." "What are you talking about?" I told her about my morning and showed her the photos. She looked at them and laughed. "You're stupid, but you're mine, Baz." "What do you mean?" "Darling, you said you couldn't find any differences between me and these photos. You missed a big difference." I looked at the one on my phone and stared at it. "I'm sorry, I just can't see," I said, feeling stupid. "Oh, honey, look." She took off her yoga pants and underwear, and I started laughing. "I can't believe how stupid I am. It was all in vain," I said, laughing. I kissed her and asked, "Is it bedtime already?" She grinned and replied, "Oh, yes, I'll meet you in the bedroom." Sienna had a small tattoo on her thigh in the form of a sun, which I did not immediately notice. However, not all of our problems have been solved. She may not have prevailed on me, but she allowed Scarlett to use our house. She tried to justify it and find excuses, but I didn't buy it. A few weeks later, I received a private investigator's report saying that Scarlett had been dating several different guys at hotels. I gave the information to Steve, and he kicked her out. I told Sienna that she should cut off all contact with Scarlett, and she reluctantly agreed. She was already mad at her and wouldn't talk to her because of her lies to me and Steve, but she decided that they would eventually make up. I do not think so. I told her that if I ever found out that she was communicating with her sister, I would kick her out. It may seem cruel to some, but I believe that this is the only way to protect yourself. I talked to a lawyer about a post-nuptial agreement, but I was most concerned about a small Baz, and in my state, it is not allowed to include guardianship in a post-nuptial agreement. As a result, I forced her to sign an agreement that gave me most of the property and left her without alimony if she had an affair on the side. She signed it without hesitation,